I want to introduce you to a term called net zero migration. Ever heard of it? Well, I didn't until several months ago, actually. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. What it means, it's for every person that leaves, another person comes in. So it's a one-for-one arrangement. Net zero. Nothing changes. This was a term that I first heard in the Reform Party, where they were talking about their migration policy. And it quickly became apparent that that isn't what we want. That isn't what the party massive would expect to see with regard to controlling the influx of people into this country. And there are many, Noel Wilcox included, that spoke about this privately and made sure that it was pushed to one side. Quite what the current state of play is at the moment. The mind boggles, but that's what it was. That's where it was. Now, in the world we live in at the moment, it's becoming more important than ever that we need to know exactly who's here and what their intentions are and everything else. It's a secure country. You know, just earlier we see, obviously not connected to migration directly, but two people have been charged in connection with breaking into RAF Prize Norton. You know, safety concerns like that we need to know about. But going back to migration, we strictly need controls. We strictly need to know who's about, who's coming in. And it's quite obvious there is no control. Now, what's happening at the moment? There's a headline here. Keir Starmer is in talks with France to return migrants in a one-in, one-out deal. What did I say at the beginning? A reform policy, or was a reform policy. Net zero, one in, one out. So he's thinking, oh, that's a good idea, isn't it? Well, what will happen if this comes off? The boats will slow down or stop, and he will claim victory, when, of course, it's nothing else. It's just coming in by another means. Says the Prime Minister has launched a fresh set of talks with France over a potential one-in, one-out migrant deal. Well, you know also that what's going to happen in that case is that it's going to cost a few million more quid or a few billion more quid. And if you look at the situation with how much France has had off of us, and we've still got this problem going on. Yes, the French coastline is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles, but there is only a set amount, and you can find this information publicly for yourself, which is facing us, which is viable for these people to make the crossing from. And one of the new tricks they're doing at the moment, where there are patrols on the beaches, the boats are acting like taxis. They're moving along from random unknown locations, and then the people are wading out to them, getting on, the way they go. So they're still happening. So under this scheme, Channel migrants would be sent back to France within weeks of their arrival, in return for the UK taking asylum seekers from France. So straight away, that appears to me that anybody that comes over by boat, in my view, they shouldn't even, and they should be returned immediately, will be returned weeks later, and then we'll take asylum seekers in return. So I do wonder if we send them over and they'll just come back by some other means, badged as asylum seekers, like a processing arrangement. Home Office sources told The Telegraph that the return scheme was a work in progress. It's always a work in progress. One thing we discussed yesterday in an interview I did, which will be out next week, by the way, is the fact that these people just want to remain electable. They want to remain in place, elected. So these things, they're never going to change. There's been a deadlock between London and Paris, as French officials argued that any new agreement would have to be EU-wide. Well, France are really much proving that they're the EU's lapdog, aren't they, with that regard, and hiding behind that all the time. However, French Interior Minister Bruno Retailleau said that a deal with Westminster would send a clear message to others planning to make the journey. Well, no, it wouldn't, because you come here, get sent back there, and you'll probably end up back here anyway. This is just more empty shenanigans, and net zero certainly doesn't do this country any good whatsoever. French officials have also agreed to start intercepting migrant taxi boats at sea for the first time, after previously refusing to do so for fear of breaching maritime safety laws. Well, these craft are intercepted anyway. There's been video evidence of this going on for years. If you look at any maritime tracker where you can see the movement of ships coming back and forward, this issue remains. And, you know, it's happening right under our eyes. Anybody that gets close to the truth on all this is quickly dealt with according to the law, because they want to hush you up and stick you out under there somewhere. It just doesn't work. An initial deal would be limited to the UK taking asylum seekers from France with family connections in Britain in return for a corresponding number of channel migrants being returned to France. I wonder how many of these people coming across on the dinghies may have family connections here. However, Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philip called the scheme a gimmick, echoing Starmer's language over the scrapped Rwanda scheme. Philip told the Telegraph, "We paid the French £500 million to wave the boats off from Calais, and in return we get a merry-go-round where the same numbers still come here. The French are failing to stop the boats at sea, failing to return them like the Belgians do, and now instead of demanding real enforcement, Labour are trying a one-in, one-out gimmick." I'm afraid I agree with that entirely. And one of the things that we don't tend to take much notice of here is the law of the land and the sea. So if you intercept somebody at sea, you're obliged to return them to the nearest, safest land, which in a lot of cases is France. Why is that being ignored, I wonder? If Labour was serious, they would not have scrapped the returns deterrent the NCA said we needed. Instead, they've surrendered our immigration system. Pathetic. Director of the Centre for Migration also slammed the idea, saying it was nonsensical. The idea of one in, one out is nonsensical. The theory is that if someone is denied asylum through an official hub in Paris or Lille, choose to cross a boat, they'll be returned. But in reality, they'll keep trying to get in. That's absolutely right. And they could end up here as asylum seekers. You know, under previous agreements, which, you know, since Brexit were all defunct and null and void. I think it was the Dublin Agreement, actually, that when they came here, they were sent back. Simple. End of discussion. But if we're truly out of the European Union, as we're told, and I don't believe that for a second, then we need other ways of stopping these boats coming in. Now, in life, you are going to find genuine cases of people that want to get a better life and everything else. I'm not, you know, disparaging that for a second. But one of the major problems we have with these people coming across the channel, we don't know who they are, where they've come from, what they want to do when they get here, or anything else about them, apart from the fact they end up here. And one thing that always sticks out in my mind is that if I was fleeing a country, or the country was falling to pieces, it wouldn't be me turning up on a boat in a foreign land, it would be my wife and kids. That's always stuck out as a big problem to me. But, you know, when they leave France, France isn't at war. France is a safe country. They attempt to cross the channel. They should be intercepted, taken straight back to the nearest, safest land, which 9 times out of 10 is the one they came from, France. Let them deal with it, end of story. And I'm very much a great believer in tariffs to convince other countries to do as they're bloody told. Take them back, deal with them. If you have to, push them back out the other side of the country. Deal with your own issues. Instead, we're getting absolutely flummoxed with all this, and it needs to stop. I think I could end by saying net zero just ain't going to work, and it's not something that we would all agree to either, is it? Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks very much for watching. Please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and this video here is another one of my migrant related ones. As always, I look forward to talking to you soon. Toodaloo.